This is going to piss some people off. People come into my comments when I talk about food addiction, which I personally have experienced, and say that food isn't addictive, it's habituative, and I want to talk about what they mean and why that's not true. So drugs don't become addictive because they're drugs. They become addictive because they hijack your dopamine center, your reward and your cueing centers, and certain foods do the same thing. And that's why we talk about another term that people are using for food addiction is ultra processed food addiction, because it's not necessarily broccoli that's addictive. It is the ultra processed foods that hijack our brain, that give us incredible dopamine spikes and then dips. If someone loses control once they start, if they crave it constantly, keep trying to stop but can't, uses it to regulate emotions, continues despite negative consequences. It's not just a habit. That's not just somebody who's weak or doesn't have enough willpower, as many people come up in my comments and say. And according to the DSM-5, which is published by the American Psychiatric Association, addiction is also not defined by the substance itself. It's defined by these things: compulsive use, loss of control, cravings, continued use despite the harm it causes, and impaired functioning when using said substance. Now, it's important to note that the DSM-5 does not explicitly talk about the dopamine hijacking using those buzzwords exactly, but here's what it talks about: reinforcement learning, conditioned cues, cravings triggered by environmental signals, and the big one, habit formation and compulsive use. So all of this diagnostic criteria actually does behaviorally capture what we're talking about with the addiction is not the substance itself, defined by the substance, it's defined by what happens to your brain because of it. And this is why Carnivore is amazing, because people who have disordered eating habits or food addiction, it helps to calm the brain. And it also helps to remove all of those trigger foods that we used in our disease. But for some, Carnivore doesn't go quite far enough. So unless we're actually dealing with the recovery of food addiction, number one, admitting it, that it was a problem in the past and might still exist even on Carnivore, helping to rewire those brain patterns, deal with the emotional fallout and the need for more spirituality in your life within your recovery. Sometimes, and it happened for me, Carnivore goes 90% of the way there, but you realize that you are still addicted. And you might use even carnivore foods within your addiction. And I think it's important to say that food addiction isn't about weakness. I said that earlier, but it's not. It's not about weakness, it's about neurobiology. And this is why I'm studying this. I'm becoming a food addiction counselor, because I've noticed in my over a year of carnivore nutrition coaching and 12 years of nutrition coaching using macro mindsets, that there are people who are still struggling and who start to reintroduce foods after a carnivore reset and still recognize that they have a disordered relationship with food in some capacity, and even potentially food addiction. So my next step in my coaching business is to really help those people to fully get all the way there. So if you removed the foods and you felt really good, and then you started to bring foods back in and you lost control again and you didn't feel great and didn't feel at peace in your head, or you became kind of obsessive about certain carnivore foods, this conversation is for you. And I'd love to hear from you. Just send me a private message and let's talk about it, because it's quite possible that carnivore doesn't go all the way there for you.